Kavita Gupta and Charu Gulati are educators that I've known for a number of years, and they are some of the most inspiring educators that I've had the pleasure to know. So in this session, you're going to hear from both of them, and you're also going to hear from 4 of their students. So we have Kavita and Charu here, and then their students Navya, Concha, Terra, and Audrey. They'll be talking to you about what it means to be a change maker and how educators around the world can inspire youth through participatory action research. So just to give you a little bit of background, Kavita is a high school chemistry teacher based in Cupertino, California. She's also the chemistry curriculum lead. She's on the Teacher Advisory Council of the National Geographic Society. She's a National Science Teachers Association thought leader and NGSS lesson curator. Charu is a middle school science teacher in San Carlos, California, and she's also the design and innovation coach. She's a National Geographic certified educator and a National Geographic certification mentor. So in this session, you're going to hear from both of them as well as their students, and they're also going to be sharing resources for you and taking time for questions. So now I'm going to turn it over to Kavita.
Hello, everybody. I have been teaching AP Chemistry for over 20 years, and I'm blessed to teach in a community that really values learning. I'm in the heart of Silicon Valley in Cupertino, California, and my students have been doing great. You know, they have performed well on standardized tests. They have won awards in science competitions, and they've even gone on to represent United States in International Chemistry Olympiad multiple times. But about 10 or so years ago, I realized that while they are so accomplished, they understand very little about their world or the issues of their times like climate change. And then too, as an educator, I thought, hey, I'm a chemistry teacher. It is not my job to teach them climate literacy. And then I said, wait, whose job is it? In my high school of over 2,500 students, barely 300 or so students take environmental science. But each of these students will become tomorrow's voting citizens. And that was a pivotal moment for me that shifted my frame of thinking in owning this problem as a content area teacher. And I said, no, I need to teach chemistry through the lens of environmental education. And I started making little changes. And the changes were small, starting in my classroom. When I taught organic chemistry, I brought in plastic pollution. When I taught acid bases, I brought in ocean acidification. And to my surprise, students really wanted to learn these things. And the learning was so much more meaningful when they had a real life context to it. And this led to our action research model where our students are inspired to become the change makers for our planet. Charu?
Hi, my name is Sue, and I know that sometimes the messenger matters. We know that the message matters more than the message is. As everyone use their voice, it is more likely to be heard. I had this first-hand experience when I was working at an international school with students who vary backgrounds. By the time they are in middle, they have lived a few different countries and they have traveled around the world. When I took this group of students to rural India, part of our program, I was appalled by their reflections. As they worked with local students navigating the language barrier, they learned that they had as much to receive as they had to give. And this epiphany inspired me to include multiple perspectives into my everyday teaching. In this section, we will look at some amazing first-hand experiences of youth engaging with their community and how they develop worldwide view to become change makers. In today's section, we will walk you through the research model we use. You will get to hear from students, and importantly, you will leave resources to implement practical work in your classroom right away. So most of the participants here are researchers, and you have led your students to research in order to gather information of the world. It could be about effect of plastics or the effect of pesticides or our risks on nuclear energy or the impact of climate agreement or of traffic. The idea is that research serves different purposes. The research we engage our students in has been focused at data-based climate literacy with the premise that research must lead us towards action.
As you just heard Charu say, that when she worked with her very privileged students and took them to interact with students in rural areas, there was great exchange of information. And she also saw a lot of success engaging her students early on in research. So I will talk a little bit more about it. I know most of the audience here are research teachers that are engaging their students in research, and you're very familiar with the process of research. It starts with identifying a problem, designing a study or conducting experiment, collecting data, and then coming up with conclusion. In our research model, YPAR, or Youth Participatory Action Research, which I'll be saying YPAR for brevity's sake. In this model, it is very much like the research that you have been doing, but there are two main differences. First difference is students identify an issue in their community, but after doing research, they take action. So action is important component of this research. And second thing, sometimes students design experiments and conduct experiments and take data, but a lot of times when we are talking about environmental education, they are actually doing literature review from scientific journals of existing data, because a lot of this data set is large, and because it is literature review, multidisciplinary collaboration becomes so much more viable. In past, somehow climate education has been reserved for science, and through this model, we've been able to break the barriers and bring multidisciplinary aspect to this invaluable learning. And when this happened and students saw the collective action through this model, they were inspired. They wanted to share their findings with the community, so we organized a community-wide event where we invited scientists, city leadership to showcase students their learning. And we call this event the Earth Deconstructed. You can almost think of it as a science fair on steroids. And you will see there was so much excitement and engagement, and we will be showing you a video so you can witness it firsthand. Allison, can you please play the video?
Earth Deconstructed, Exploring Before the Flood, was an event hosted by Monte Vista High School students and faculty to show the community how climate change reaches across multiple subjects and disciplines. Not only did they pull it off, Earth Deconstructed, Exploring Before the Flood, was an event hosted by Monte Vista High School students and faculty to show the community how climate change reaches across multiple subjects and disciplines. Not only did they pull it off, but the event successfully resonated within their community. More than 500 attendees gathered to watch presentations, panelists, and performances, and learn of climate change in the process.
The goal was to expose students to the real process of literacy and to see that education is not done in silos, that learning is the same throughout different disciplines. I wanted a cool multidisciplinary event where students could see the same topic and learning expressed in different media. And seeing student presentations here, their energy, I definitely think we accomplish more.
Arts Deconstructed may be over, but the ideas aren't completely gone. Now, Monte Vista High School is already planning to continue on its role with the third chapter of deconstructing the world around them for next year.
Seeing the student excitement and engagement and the energy around it, maybe something like this again, a multidisciplinary event around a topic to be determined.
Hopefully, you saw the energy and enthusiasm of over 250 student presenters who presented their learning around climate change in different medium. You must have noticed from a model of a solar cooker to artwork to drama to ceramics, of course apps and poster presentations. But there was so much action in this collective presentation that students were inspired by each other. Also, this model is a great equalizer. You know, in high school, there are your traditional stereotypes of kids feeling smart, kids not feeling so smart, the jocks and the introverts and extroverts. But this model lets students express or present in the medium that they are most comfortable in. Some are artists, some like to make things, some like to draw things, some like to create things. And from your jocks to everybody, this model talked to them. I heard comments like, this was the best night of my high school, or I'll never forget this learning. And here I want to share a quick anecdote with you of a football player. And this kid always felt less than himself in my very challenging and driven AP Chem class. And when he presented his research to NASA scientists, his personal role models, and they were so complimentary of his research, he came to me almost in tears and said, Mrs. Gupta, I'm actually very smart. And I told him, yes, that's what I've been saying the whole day. But sometimes it takes meaningful learning experiences like this for students to see their own potential. Charu?
Great showcase of what a youth summit could look like. But I know that at first, this may look very unnerving to some of us. But we also know that no age group is too small to start researching. And like Kavita said, research can be embedded in all disciplines across all grade levels. So here you see an example of a classroom project. So we are looking at the scales of Y1, and we are starting with the smallest scale, something that you can do in your classroom. For this work, my students were learning about the synthetic materials and the chemistry of plastics. Using the climate literacy lens, they learned about the ramifications of plastic pollution on marine life. With research on surface trash versus deep ocean trash, they were challenged to build a prototype of a device that helps cleanse the ocean. So here you see some innovative designs that came out of a research project in a sixth grade classroom. Can we now go to the next slide, Allison? We also very well know that what starts in the classroom has the potential of spreading out into the community. One of the goals my seventh graders set for themselves was to focus on single-use plastics. Their motivation led them to present findings from their research to the school board and enforce a ban for plastic water bottles on our campus. Further, they started looking at our hot lunch program, and they wanted to eliminate all single-use plastic from there. They now have a plan to spread this message to other schools in our district as well as our neighboring downtown. The picture on the right side is showcasing a service project my international students did along with the local students at the village after learning how composting is a part of everyday life in the rural areas. They learned that people are doing this without knowing the positive implications of this practice. There was a powerful exchange of knowledge and the understanding of how different cultures have different ways of living in harmony with nature. This truly resonated with my students, and they walked away with such wonderful confidence and truly understanding the idea of being on board and learning from each other.
Deconstructed, but now they wanted to do more. After experiencing youth participatory action research share out at community level, they wanted to engage with more peers across the nation. So we had to organize a bigger event, and we called it Youth Climate Action Summit. This was a day-long event where students heard not only from their school or from Silicon Valley peers, but they also got to learn from action research of students from Florida and Galapagos. And you see a picture on the left side where they asked them about what their researches were and how climate change is impacting them. And Galapagos students shared that with increasing temperatures on one of the islands, a berry that used to grow there doesn't grow anymore. It's heat sensitive, while the same berry grows on their grandmother's island. This was a powerful exchange. Much like right now we are connecting virtually, they connected as well. There were many sessions. They got inspired by looking at this collective action, and it made them believe that they have a voice and a choice, and that their local actions can have global impact. And we had planned a similar day-long summit for this year, but nature had other plans for us. So we moved to a virtual Earth Day instead of doing a full-on summit. And you see the second picture where again students presented their action research and talked about their community impact and what they are going to do. And we know what starts in middle school or elementary school or high school actually sows seeds for love for research and understanding their environment, and seeing that they actually are not too small to tackle the big problems. And many students come back over the years to tell me that this research early on in high school empowered them to go to college and from get-go get into research lab and try and find solutions to make human lives better. And this is an example of one of my students who graduated this year from UIUC. Since her freshman year, she has been working on environmental research. So her testimonial clearly tells you that what starts now will last them lifetime with positive impact in their community. And now, the moment you've been waiting for, you'll actually get to hear from some students about their research. And the first student I would like to invite here is Navya.
Hi, everybody. I'm Navya, like Ms. Gupta introduced me. So earlier this year, I noticed several dead bees next to an azalea bush in my front yard, and I was really curious to see if there was a connection. After doing some research, I learned that several plants, including azaleas, are actually very harmful to bees and contribute to their population decline. I told my other friend and we see what I had learned, and the two of us started researching other threats that bees face. Arushi and I started meeting up in cafes over bread bowls, and soon we realized that bees are threatened not only by rapid changes in the climate, but also by several invasive plant species as well. Especially considering that bees are responsible for over 90% of all plant pollination. Their protection is crucial for the environment. Arushi and I worked together to create an application called Be Aware that analyzes the effect of pesticide use and air quality index in California on honeybees. The app also implements algorithms to present the data through a color-coded interactive map. In addition, we have compiled a database of over 500 plants that the app cross-references to check if a user's inputted plants are bee-friendly or harmful, while also providing the reason for toxicity. Finally, the app has a take action feature that breaks down large action items down into smaller steps, because what may seem like minor actions today will truly be major tomorrow. We used a free data set documenting pesticide use by county in California from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to compile data sets to analyze and interpret. We then collected data sets from the Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation and from the California Air Resources Board for both air quality conditions and plant safety information. To create more of a personal connection with the app, we also visited several garden stores and got to talk with the managers to learn a bit more about the specific plants that are bad for honeybees and also the most commonly sold plants to people in our community so that we could easily find out which plants to use in our database. And ultimately, we are really glad that we got this opportunity, and we truly hope that youth and adults alike can unite over a common cause and really work to help the honeybee population. So next, Concha will be presenting a visual arts project.
Hello everyone, my name is Concha, and along with my visual arts project, I will also be presenting my classmate Iona's. So on the left is my visual arts project, The World's Eye View. In it, I've depicted numerous environmental problems such as forest fires, glacier melting, endangered species, water pollution, deforestation, and the burning of fossil fuels. I decided to draw more than one problem because there are so many environmental problems that are interconnected. It is hard to pick just one. I was able to decide which problems to show from an online APES course I'm taking. I've used all recyclable materials in my artwork to emphasize the importance of recycling and upcycling. I've used plexiglass to show ice melting, wooden skewers to emphasize timber harvesting, and painted my artwork on cardboard instead of a traditional canvas. On the right is Iona's project. She was studying climate change in her biology class, and she watched Bill Nye's global meltdown. She was extremely shaken up after watching it, and so surprised that people could be so ignorant about the situation. Most of her inspiration and research that led to her project came from her biology class. Her drawing showcases a world that could occur in the future if we do not do anything about climate change, featuring more hurricanes, droughts, wildfires, and fossil fuel emissions. In the middle, there is a little girl standing on the earth, holding up a sign of Greta Thunberg's words, "How dare you?" She wants to bring awareness that if we do not do anything now, the world will only get worse and our future generations may end up hating us. Next, presenting will be Audrey.
Last summer was when I started looking for ways that I could make a difference. I remember I was on vacation with my family and we were walking through a meat market. Seeing the dead bodies there horrified me and made me decide that I wanted to do as little harm as possible to animals in my life. That's how I turned to veganism, a lifestyle that seeks to avoid exploiting or causing harm to all life. One of my favorite sayings is, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better," from Maya Angelou. What this means to me is that we can never be perfect. There's always more to discover. But through research, we are constantly learning new ways to help our planet and make the world a better place. It's our responsibility to learn about the world around us to be the best people we can be. I wanted to do as much research as I could, so I watched multiple documentaries about veganism. As I was investigating the animal agriculture industries, the cruelty shocked me, but also the environmental impact. The one that was the most thought-provoking to me was Cowspiracy, which focused on the effect our diet has on the environment. From deforestation to ocean depletion to pollution of waterways or greenhouse gases, all of these issues have a direct connection to the food that we eat. With all of this information at my disposal, I couldn't stay silent. I felt like I had an obligation to speak up about veganism for the animals, for other humans, and for our planet. I marched at the climate strike in September and shared my thoughts at the school staff meeting. I was so happy to hear that a few teachers have decided to modify their diets and try this idea out. Most people don't stop to think about what they're eating and the effect it has. My goal is to encourage people to do research about these industries so that they can make educated decisions on their diet. We all have a role to play in climate change, and we can make it a positive impact as soon as our next mealtime approaches. Now you'll hear from Tara about a rain garden engineering project.
Thank you, Audrey. So at our school, there used to be this rough patch of dirt and wood chips in the middle of the quad. It was a huge inconvenience. I mean, it was a path of kids trying to get from class to class. It kicked up clouds of dust in the summer, and worst of all, in the winter, it turned into a huge, muddy river that has caused more than a few accidents over the years. And our school has had to deal with this for so long, and for quite long. When we saw an opportunity to both solve a problem and have some hands-on stuff, not to mention beautify our school and help out the environment a little bit, we couldn't pass it up. Over the fall, we did a little bit of research and brought a plan together. With the help from our district office, we were able to install 2 rain barrels and plant a rain garden in the one rough and uninviting patch of dirt. So the way a rain barrel works is it basically just collects rainwater that would otherwise be washed off into the sewers, filters it, and uses and gives it a purpose. In this case, watering a rain garden. The actual act of installing the barrels involved engineering. We had to make sure that the rain barrels were properly attached to the gutter and that water flowed out of them properly. While planting our garden, we also had to research native plant species and how to properly take care of them. Later next year, we're also planning on testing the water in the barrel to see if it's cleaner than normal rainwater. Rain gardens are an intricate mix of STEM, building, and design, not to mention chemistry and cycles of earth. Water brings life to everything, after all. This research project led us to not only make our school campus more beautiful, but more importantly, led us to bring about a positive change to our environment. This project is ongoing, so it will continue to teach hands-on STEM to many more cheerleading students to come. I'm so glad that I was part of this project, but more importantly, I'm glad that I was part of the experience of being a senator, being able to make a difference in my community.
Wow, well, thank you so much to our students.
Experience.
And Chara is going to give us a couple of closing remarks.
Yes. So thank you so much, all the students. Aren't they amazing? Like Tara said, it was fun for her to be a part of this project, but most importantly, the whole experience of being a 7th grader and being able to make a positive difference in her community has been a highlight for her. These young people are forces for meaningful change. Our student work is genuine and compelling because they have invested the time and energy to focus on researching these topics they are passionate about. And there is no other joy than to see our students feel empowered as their sphere of influence expands. The drive to be change makers is there. All we need to do is to ignite their passions. And we hope that our resources become a part of your toolkit and help you do this. Through education and action, we can actually change the world. So here is a step-by-step guide developed by Kavita that can help you implement YR in your classroom tomorrow. And we are here to help, as is the National Geographic educators community.
Great. Well, thank you so much to Charu, Kavita, and all the students. You all were so incredible. And I learned so much from each and every one of you, and we have some really fantastic questions from the audience. So I'm going to turn to Charu for our first question, but we also will have some for the students as well. So Charu, I'm thinking of you first, just because you're working with middle school students, and just wanted to know what you would say to a student who thinks a problem like climate change is too big and complicated for young people to tackle.
That is such a great question. And this is something that we all, not only young students, we all think about, I am just one person and what can I do? And what I have been telling students is, even though climate change is a big problem, we all can do a little bit and every action makes a difference. So simple things like simplifying your life a little bit, moving a little bit slower. So if you want to choose a mode of transport that is not as fast, that does make a big difference. Small actions do all add up. So start small, get a lot of community to support you, and it will very soon go big. I hope this helps.
That's great, thank you. One question for you, Kavita, was just if you'd be willing to share the video of the Climate Summit and just if you could talk a little bit more about the resource that you provided.
Yes, of course. That's a great question. I'm glad you are interested. Yes, the video is actually part of this PDF that you see. There are hot links in there. You can just click and take it. And this tiny URL will take you to our presentation from where you can access that video. And yes, we are all here to support you. And don't be intimidated. You can start very small. And this resource guide has day by day, lesson by lesson activities and examples for you to get started, and feel free to reach out to us anytime.
Great. So you have their contact information on the screen, and I know they're also very active on Twitter if you want to connect with them that way. This question I'm going to turn to the students is, do you have recommendations on how we can encourage more young people at other schools to do projects like theirs? So I'm going to turn to Concha for this one.
So my recommendation would be to first start small about any topic. As I showed in my artwork, there are numerous environmental problems that someone can focus on. So pick one and start thinking about how you can change it positively in your community. So first make change in your community before thinking about the big scale.
Great, that's so fantastic. Does anyone else have anything they'd want to add? Maybe Tara?
Pretty much the same thing. I'd also say telling your students that every small change actually does make a difference. I mean, also that environmental literacy comes in so many ways, like art, again, science, and then like performances. So you can do it in so many ways, and just knowing that, I think, is also important.
Great, thank you. I'm going to ask this one of Audrey to see if she has any advice on that she would give to other young people who want to impact their environment.
I'd say just like start small, do whatever changes you can at the moment, and make sure that you're informed. Like if you don't know something, then don't be afraid to look it up.
That's great. Thank you. I love the advice to start small. I think that that's something that any student can do, but also educators. And that's been a theme of this presentation, is that everyone can get started with this. Another question for students, for Navia, would love to hear how you first got interested in STEM.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a very interesting question because for quite a while I've been very torn between STEM and humanities myself, being unable to decide between the two. But I think when I really became interested in STEM was probably a few years ago when I first I took a really basic coding class, and in that class they really discussed a lot about how STEM can be used to create a societal impact and how STEM and the humanities can actually be intertwined to make the hugest impact. And I think just hearing about how, I feel like in a lot of our heads, STEM is often seen as like sitting in front of a computer just typing mindlessly. But when you kind of see STEM actually having an effect on people and combining with the humanities, allowing you to make those connections, that's what really got me into the subject.
Wow, thank you so much. And that really connects back to what Kavita was saying at the beginning of the session of thinking about her role as a chemistry teacher and how she could really work interdisciplinary. So thank you for sharing that. I have a question for Kavita, and it's that my school is not very supportive. So how can I bring awareness to my school or even community around work like this?
And that's a question I bet that's on the mind of many educators. And you might be surprised to hear that the first event we did with school, but Youth Climate Action Summit, we didn't have much support. Know that there are many community organizations who can be that support for you, right? You can seek grants from foundation. You can look at the local museums or other informal education institutions. National Geographic certification is another way where you can become a certified educator, learn about the environmental issues and their framework, and also gain a community that can help you grow in that. But don't forget, you have a lot more resources than your school at your local level. So reach out to your community organization, like maybe local zoos or the museums. They might give you space. You already have your students, and voila, we have a youth convening.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kavita. And Charu, I wanted to see if you had anything to add on that, and if you could also expand on how other educators can get involved with National Geographic, particularly because you're in the role of a certification mentor.
Yes. So like Kavita said, and like you mentioned, Allison, National Geographic has a lot of professional development coursework for teachers. And all of this professional development is absolutely free. All you need to do is go to the National Geographic Education website and look at the professional development coursework. I have taken a couple of courses, and I have to say that this has been one of the best professional developments I have ever done. I got to meet like-minded educators. I got to work on the existing lesson plans I had and modify them with the National Geographic framework to really bring that connection to my classroom and for my students to look at each topic with many different perspectives. And this has really helped me engage my students much better and not just think about science as a course subject that is not related to anything else that they do in school. So my recommendation would be check out the website, pick a course that you like. There are many courses. There is a course that is specific for getting a better understanding of climate change. There is a course on service learning. There is Nat Geo. There's a courses out there. Check them out. We would love to have you as part of our National Geographic educators community.
Thank you so much, Charu. And if anyone needs the website again, it's natgeoed.org. And you'll find all of the courses that Charu mentioned, as well as many additional ones. And the one on climate change is especially relevant to this course. We also have one tied to service learning and more planned for the next school year. You can also follow us on social media if you look up Nat Geo Education on Twitter or Facebook, and we promote all of our best resources there. We have an amazing website full of free classroom resources for grades K through 12, and we're working to expand our work directly with young leaders like all of the ones you've met today. So it's a really exciting time at National Geographic Society, and really the biggest joy of my work is getting to work with all the presenters you saw today. We do have a few more minutes for questions. There's a few more coming in that I'm going to turn the next one to Kavita in just a moment. But if the audience has any more questions for the students, feel free to drop them in. But Kavita, this is a big one that maybe we can start small and then hopefully point people to some resources. And the question is around climate change and how it's impacted by human activity, and this idea that where is the data to support that? Given that in some communities, some people don't believe in climate change, how can we find the data to show how humans impact the climate?
And that is such an excellent question. So anytime you talk climate change, obviously there are people who do not believe the impact of human activity on climate change. The goal here is the way I have approached it. The goal is getting data-based understanding of changing climate around us. I am not developing them into climate believers or non-believers. They need to reach that understanding. And for the data, there are many scientific journals that they can reference to. And there are many credible sites like NASA, NOAA. We also use National Geographic site. We used many databases like EBSCO and JSTOR, and there are journal articles that relate human activity to climate change. But your student may choose to do research and find some articles that don't show that correlation, and that's valid research as well. But data is available through many scientific journals, and whatever online databases your school has subscribed to will let your students access that. And online, there is so many resources that you can find. They're collecting real-time data as well if you want to go and get the ocean pH with temperatures and so on. There is much available there.
Great, thank you. Another question for Navia was, what is the biggest challenge you faced when starting your research? And if you have any advice on what other plants might have a negative impact on bees?
I think one of the biggest challenges that I personally faced was to just gather all of the data, because the app that we created was definitely very data-driven related to analysis of the threats that bees face. So finding the data was definitely a challenge. So that required, hours of just searching through the internet, trying to find the right resources to collect data, and a lot of fact checking as well, because you don't necessarily want to believe any website that claims to give you data. And some other just common plants that are harmful to bees. So there are azaleas. There's a plant called summer tea that's fairly common, and then yellow jasmine. There's quite a few, but if you want more information, you can always do a Google search.
Great, thank you so much. Well, we're getting close to our time, so I just wanted to thank the audience and thank our presenters for being part of this amazing session today, and really hope that everyone can keep participating in all the other Regeneron sessions happening tomorrow. I know that this has been an incredible event, and Kavita and Charu have been participating in some live events as well. So we're just so thrilled, and just wanted to say thank you again to Kavita, Charu, Navia, Concha, Terra, and Audrey.